how does this make sense of, COVID or Afghanistan or climate change or like any of or my own private struggles or loss or grief or, questing or whatever. So the preacher is trying to make those connections. And that's what makes the tradition live and have relevance to people. I am Associate Dean of Students, Associate Professor of Homiletics. And why I came here was I felt a call to teach preaching. And I'm an Episcopal priest. I really wanted to teach in an Episcopal context, in a seminary context. We have the words in the chapel, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel, which were in the old chapel or now in the new chapel, which speak to kind of the importance that preaching has always had. I wanted to be in a place where that was considered to be important. And certainly acceptance of LGBT people. I was the first openly LGBT professor here, and so that was very controversial in those days, and it's really, really changed in 18 years. You wouldn't even recognize it when you think about it now. All of our work around race and reparations, that's been huge in the last 4 or 5 years. I think we've come to a raised consciousness about the history of the seminary as having a pretty checkered past when it comes to race and welcoming people of color as students or faculty or staff. So we've seen some changes there. I think it has just solidified its place of prominence within the Anglican Communion. It's really become a national seminary since I've been here. And I think our faculty has become a more research-oriented faculty than it was 18 years ago. Inclusion and diversity and equity right from the start. And that actually changes our demographic too, because there's some students we lose, or prospective students, we're not even saying in the application process you have to agree with this covenant. You just have to engage it. You have to know that the seminary is committed to it. And then we lose a few students who really don't like that and don't want to engage with it. But we gain a lot more, and they're much more open to that conversation. I, as I say, wanted to teach in a seminary, wanted to teach people who were going into that kind of ministry, more so than wanting to teach people who were going to be teaching religion or whatever in colleges. The preaching is the most open part of the liturgy. It's the unscripted part. And it's the part where the person who's preaching is trying to make a connection between this whole tradition with the prayer book and the scripture and the Christian theology and the world that we live in today, so that people can make meaning out of their lives and also make meaning out of this tradition that they are part of. I teach with my colleague, Mark Jefferson, and we have a number of things that we do. So we take a sort of building blocks approach to preaching. So instead of just saying, go away, preach a sermon, go away, write a sermon, come back, preach it for us, we actually try to teach a process of engagement. So the process starts with engaging the text. We ask them to engage the congregation and try to figure out who these people are. We ask them to think about the world context, the cultural context, what's going on that they need to be talking about. And then we ask them to engage themselves. So where does this text touch my life today? How is this text true for me? Because without that piece, you really can't preach. You need to have a sense that this is meaningful. If you have to perform it, if you have to learn it by heart and speak it, you really have to understand what it means. You just can't gloss over the words that you don't understand or that you don't like. You just have to engage fully with all of it. We want people to be able to see where they're coming from in relation to texts. So all of that is about finding the way that they can be fully present, but also faithful to all these different strands that are influencing the sermon. I really do. I love the students. I'm always impressed that we get really good students. We get very faithful people, earnest people who really, really want to make a difference in the world. And I think that's probably even more true now than it used to be.